Boom, we are live. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the Nolan Hawkeye Anthony YouTube channel. And I thank all of you for being here wherever you may be. And of course, however you may be listening. Got a bit of basketball news for you guys today. Iowa received a commitment from power forward slash center Dezmon Briscoe. And it did come as kind of a surprise, to me at least. I saw an article this morning saying that Iowa was trending with a prospect, but I didn't think it was this prospect. I thought that it was a recently offered prospect. There's been some names that Iowa has been linked to recently. They offered a 7-footer that goes to a junior college. I think he's from Nigeria, somewhere in there. And they're very much in play for him, but suffice it to say, I was surprised. This is a name that I am familiar with. I've seen Iowa targeting him, or him being on the target list. They received a commitment from, or a official visit from him on October 25th, 2024, and it just kind of seemed like things had died out. You know, sometimes in basketball and football, there are prospects that get offers, and their offer sheet might actually be pretty good. And then all of a sudden, you don't really hear anything about their recruitment for a while. And I thought that might be him. At least the Power 4 level interest subsided, and he was more focusing on some of the smaller schools like a DeQuince and things like that. So without further ado, let's check out his profile. I'm not going to share my screen. Maybe I will change rotate it so you guys can see it. Let me see if I can try that. Here is his profile here. Basically high 3-star across the board. To dive into it very quickly, what is my evaluation of this get? I mean, he stands at 6'8", 220 pounds, and looking at some highlights, which, by the way, especially in basketball, watching highlights is very difficult to judge. The best thing I think you can judge is if, like, almost a full game is posted and you're able to watch how they played in a full game. But again, that's only one game, so you're limited to your evaluation. But you're really grading at the high end of what they can do, ergo highlights. So physically, he has a good build. He reminds me a lot of Lajai Dembele. In fact, they have almost exactly the same body types, thick lower halves. I think Lajai Dembele, at least to me, appears a little bit more mobile. As Dezmon Briscoe plays a little bit more upright, but that just could be his stature. I mean, it's not necessarily a negative, but I like to see with big guys the ability to bend and be more mobile for their size. Not that he's not mobile, but I would say Lajai Dembele is a little bit more mobile. But their games are very similar. You know, they both, in the highlights that I watched, he can step out and shoot the three. Some of the evaluations that I saw said that, or read rather, said that he has decent shooting form, but he has not yet become a consistent outside threat. And he has not yet become a turn and face up big that can beat you offensively that way. At this point, his main skill sets are his physicality, his ability to rebound. But like I said, in the highlights that I watched, I mean, he felt more than comfortable stepping out from the three-point line, letting it fly. I think his shooting form is going to need some assistance. There is some wasted motion in his shooting form. When he gets it, he brings it way down here, and then he brings it here for a shot. you want to have as little wasted motion as a shooter as possible. That's why, like Peyton Sandfort, that's why he is such a prized entity, or at least was last year, because Peyton Sandfort can catch it here and just go right up from here with very little wasted motion, and it makes your shot release that much quicker. Now, it's not the end-all be-all, but it is important to be able to, I'll put it to you this way, it's a huge advantage to be somebody who can catch and shoot, catch it, and from that same position, go straight up and shoot it with very little wasted motion. It really helps your ability to get off shots in a variety of angles against a variety of different defenders. Now, the good news is he's 6'8". And like I said, he does bring it here, which will help him. I think he just needs to get in the gym a little bit more and practice on just being here, boom, straight up and going up that way. I view him, just to succinctly put this, I view him as a bit of a developmental prospect. He's got some good characteristics. I'm not sure that he's going to be a guy that comes in immediately and plays. But if you look long term at who Iowa has on the roster and some of their young guys, you have J.R. Coach, who's 6'7", 6'8". You have the guy from last year who was the highest rated guy for any single recruiting service, Chris Taggio, who was rated as a 95 according to On3, who is 6'8", 230 pounds. So in two classes back to back, Fran McCaffrey has some size. So some pretty good size, and I think there's some versatility too. Dezmon Briscoe is joining, and I can't remember if I did a video on him. If I haven't, I'll need to. The first commitment for Iowa was 6'10" out of South Kent, Connecticut, Badara Diakati. And of the two, I think that he is more skilled right now coming out of high school. Watching some of his clips, watching his shooting motion, watching his highlights, I think that Badara will probably, as far as skill set goes, be able to play sooner. And in basketball, where we are moving more and more and more towards a highly skilled game, I think he has a better chance of seeing the floor early. He's 6'10". Iowa can, any school can always use size, but at the same time, sometimes being physically gifted early on is your pathway to early minutes, especially in the Big Ten. So it just depends. But I do think that, just my analysis, I think that Badara has the better pathway to early playing time. So just to give an overview of this class, I think that this is a decent addition. It's not the best addition. It's decent. The last couple of years, Fran McCaffrey and Iowa has really had to kind of be patient and navigate through the new waters that are NIL and things like that. They really have to, it's been multiple classes now where they've had to wait and find a prospect later in the process. Most prospects, like high Power 4 prospects, are already signed, already committed to their schools. So they've had to be patient. They've had to wane through and uncover some leftover prospects that maybe haven't been seen yet, that are late risers, late bloomers. They have kind of consistently, with the exception of like a ranking service here or there that might have a guy as a 4-star. For example, Badara is mostly a high 3-star, but ESPN and Rivals have him as a 4-star prospect. Last year, Chris Taggio was a predominantly 3-star prospect, but again, On3 had him as a top 60 player in the country. So the classes are not the best, and they are not as far as a confidence meter goes, it's not like it's like a 10 out of 10. You have a class full of 3 to 4 consensus high 4-star players or anything like that. There is upside. There are some good attributes. There are things that are beneficial at the Big Ten level. But there's also there are also guys that need development. Yes, also J.R. Coach was definitely mostly a 4-star player. So Dezmon Briscoe, I like his game. He's going to be, at least early in his career, more of a bruiser, a guy that rebounds, defends, gives you some physicality, but there is still some development that is needed on the offensive side of the ball. And I already alluded to it, his shooting touch, developing some post moves. It's really tough for the modern big man, especially in America. Overseas, they are highly talented. And in fact, I kind of wish Iowa went overseas a lot more. I'm surprised that they don't. I wish Iowa would go, but maybe they don't have the contacts, but I wish they would go and see if there are some prospects that are European that would be willing to come to America, especially big men. But in America, because the game has become so guard and perimeter oriented, and 3-point shooting has become much more popular, you either have big men that are just completely and utterly bodies that are primarily used for defensive purposes and put back dunks or layups, or pick and roll dunks or layups, or you have big men that are terrible at that but are highly skilled from the perimeter. There's really no in between anymore. You don't see a ton of big men that have excellent feet work, as Shaq would say, aka footwork, in the low post, where you could dump it down, clear out, and let them go to work. What we saw with Luka Garza was I think rare, and even what we see with Owen Freeman, which Owen Freeman, let's be honest, even coming out of high school, did not have most of those post moves. He's mostly developed that from his time at Iowa. So I think Fran McCaffrey's program is good at developing. They obviously saw something with him that they like. And anytime you can get a 6'8", 220-pound guy that has some skill, at the very least some skill, it's advantageous. And unfortunately, Iowa fans, Iowa just is not going to, by and large, compete for year in, year out for the top big men in the country. It's just not going to happen. Not in this day and age, especially with NIL. Either Iowa and the NIL and their collective would need to improve massively, or Iowa would need to all of a sudden become a perennial top 15 program in the country. And even still, on top of that, the in-state recruiting for Iowa has kind of been not so good the last couple of years. I mean, I don't think there's been very many high major prospects coming from the state of Iowa in the last 2 years. I mean, the only class that has had a decent amount of prospects from the state of Iowa that are recruitable would be next year's class, 2026, in which Iowa already has a commitment from. So, being that as it may, Iowa is a school that has to be, I'm pulling up Iowa's recruiting rankings. Iowa has to be a school that is much more diligent, patient, and creative in the prospects that they find. I guess you could count Jack McCaffrey. He's a high 3-star. On3 has him as an 89, and of course he committed to Butler to play for Thad Matta for the 2025 class. There is a kid that is 6'9" that On3 has as a top 130 player, and Iowa is looking at him. He has offers from Bryant and Tarleton State. He goes to Valley High School. His name is Trevin Jurok, but he doesn't have any Power 4 offers. That's an interesting one. And then if you go to 2024, there was no players that were ranked for 2024. So, Iowa, in years that there's no or very little in-state talent, has to be creative and selective. So that's pretty much it, guys. Again, player comp, Lajai Dembele, physically, I do think Lajai Dembele is slightly further ahead in his talent level, and probably was used a little bit more on the perimeter in his high school days. But in fairness to Dezmon and the highlights that I have seen, a lot of the highlights are from like a year or 2 years ago, and a lot of development can happen from year to year in high school. So I will say that. But nonetheless, welcome aboard, Dezmon Briscoe. I think this is a fine class. It's not the best class, but it's definitely better than some of the other classes Fran McCaffrey has had. And there's definitely some size in this class, and it looks like Fran McCaffrey is really trying to bolster his forward position, looking at how he has recruited the forward position the last 2 to 3 classes. All right, guys, thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to hit that subscribe button, like, comment. You guys know the drill. And last but not least, DBAP, don't be a pussy will. In fact, your feelings, because your feelings just don't matter. I love you, Hawk fans. See you guys next time. Go Hawks. Bye-bye.